The Talking Cheeseheads on CheeseheadTalk.com.
All right, so the Packers, they addressed some needs clearly in this draft. One of them, the fact that they were becoming wimpy, according to all sources around the NFL. And not wimpy because of lack of will or probably even mental toughness, just the fact that the other players on the better teams were bigger than the Packers were this past season. And so they made some steps to correct that. They didn't draft anybody who was a shrimp, let's put it that way, anywhere. And so they are, the kid from UCLA that they drafted, Dayton Jones, looks like Superman, Reed, physically, and apparently is a workout warrior, and has some production on the field. I was excited to see him get that guy prototypical end in the 3-4 defense. And then the other that really comes out of this draft for me, my thoughts is that the Packers are going to they're gonna run the football, I think, and not just last year numbers wise they ran it. If you take away Rodgers' runs, still they ran it 23 times a game, which is not a terrible number, probably more than what a lot of Packer fans would have thought. But it was always draws or trying to catch the defense by surprise or running out of spread formations. You draft these two cats and you get some offensive line strength, and you're talking about moving Bulaga to the left side. These guys might start lining up a little bit more power formations and running the football. And, you spend, true key draft picks on the running game, and it looks like Mike McCarthy is actually going to pony up and run the football this year.
Well, I mean, what else is he going to do? I mean, the rest of the NFL made this offense look very, very pedestrian a lot of times last year by just keeping two safeties back. It frustrated Rodgers. You could tell it frustrated the receivers. This offense is not, as much as it's based on the West Coast, it's not designed to matriculate the ball down the field 11, 12 plays at a time. It's designed to get down the field in 5 plays quickly and score a touchdown and then get the ball back and keep doing it until you score 42 points and hope that your defense doesn't give up 43. And that wasn't the case last year. I can actually think of 2 times last year where the Packers really committed. That they came in with like a power I formation and actually could do some things, but it still didn't get them any points. One was against the Seattle Seahawks. Remember when they came out at halftime of that game in the second half, after the entire first half, that they didn't do jack squat with the ball, and they went into a I formation with Kuhn leading the way for Cedric Benson, and they at least got to the 30-yard line. I think then they missed the field goal. I can't exactly remember. Maybe they kicked the field goal. They at least got field position turned in their favor, and then I think against Minnesota, James Starks was actually able to run the clock out of it. Is that right? Was it Minnesota or Arizona? I can't remember.
I think so, yeah. At Lambeau.
Yeah, it was at Lambeau.
I thought it was Minnesota.
That's the
Lambeau, yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could count DeJuan Harris in the playoff game, and then you could count the whole team against the Tennessee Titans that had given up 3 weeks earlier. But the fact is, the rest of the year, you spent your season as a Packer fan watching Aaron Rodgers look pissed off. And now that he's just signed him for $22 million, you don't want Aaron Rodgers to look pissed off anymore. You want Aaron Rodgers to look happy. Like, I'm glad I'm making $22 million. I'm glad I'm not having to do State Farm ads. And I'm glad that I'm not getting pounded every single week. And also, not having any receivers to throw to. So if that's what Jonathan Franklin and Eddie Lacy bring to this team is at least, one of those safeties to come up in the box, then it was a successful draft pick and successful overall draft by Ted Thompson.
Well, the concern, obviously, with Eddie Lacy is this injury. He had a fused toe, is what we're seeing now. It's called turf toe, but they actually fused his toe. I don't know how you do that, some way, shape, or form. And he's expected to have reoccurring injuries in his foot, and he had a disappointing pro day because he wasn't in shape, wasn't ready to go. So he dropped, and it's either good or bad. I mean, obviously, the Packers have a Hall of Fame quarterback who dropped, and people say he dropped for a reason, and nobody can figure out exactly what that is these days. So you never know what's going to happen. But they're not going to ask Eddie Lacy to carry the ball 30 times. You still have Aaron Rodgers. They're going to ask him to carry it 15 to 20 per game. And if you have a featured back, that's all I want is that I would love for at least 75% of the time when everybody on 3rd and 1 in the stadium and on TV knows you're going to run the football and you line up in a power formation and you run it and you get the 1 yard. I mean, how long has it been since they were able to do that? Amon Green? Maybe a little bit of Ryan Grant. It just didn't happen that often, and so that would be nice. And the absolute key to this is exactly what you said, Reed. Bringing the safety up. Everybody after the Giants smoked the Packers 2 years ago in the playoffs played a cover 2. They just dropped into the shell, and the Packers scored points last year, but we all know it wasn't as good as it could have been. and they need that threat.
Yeah, they need it. Now the issue here, the wild card in all this is still Mike McCarthy, because that guy loves calling pass plays. He loves it. It's his favorite thing to do in the whole world. I'd say more than vacation with his wife and take pictures of other couples when they're proposing to each other. I think he really likes calling pass plays. Behind the card, of course. In particular, I know we should run it with our 2 high draft pick running backs, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to pass it to our 7th round draft pick wide receiver. So he wants to throw the ball. So now the most important part is Mike McCarthy willing to put his mouth where the Packers are spending their money and actually call a few run plays and not just goofy zone blocking scheme crap, but like real run plays, like power plays, like off tackles and things like this that other teams do and they have success with because their offensive line, at least can move downfield. I don't know if the Packers offensive line can actually move downfield. I don't think they can actually zone block because we haven't seen them do that in 7 years since that scheme was brought in. But at least let them move, try to get something going momentum-wise to the opposite end zone. That's all I'm looking for. Maybe Zaki and Tread or whatever their names are can do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're going to provide some competition. They're talking about moving Bulaga to the left tackle side because Marshall Newhouse, I should say, isn't physical in particular enough. And the Packers clearly, even though they bristle publicly at the suggestion that they're not as, manly, I guess, as the other teams, the Niners, the Giants who they've been whipped by the last 2 years, or Seattle or Baltimore, whatever. They know it internally because they're proving it. They got that Mulligan kid at tight end. You beefed up on the offensive line in the draft now. You've got the running game. So the big question, the wild card, is McCarthy, and it's not necessarily game planning because I think coming into the season he's going to be all game plan to run the football. It's in the midst of the game, late third quarter, early fourth, when you're in the flow of the game and you've got Aaron Rodgers and you've got 3rd and 2, are you just going to bail every time and go to the pass, which isn't the worst decision in the world, but, what's the decision going to be there with Mike McCarthy when push comes to shove in that situation? I think that's going to be fascinating to watch this year and a huge story now in the offseason here. So,
well, what about 3rd and 2 and keeping your options open, not going empty? I mean, that's – if I could say one frustration as a Packer fan, I guess it's 1A and 1B. 1A is knowing that when they line up for 3rd and 1, they're not going to be able to run the ball and get it. That was frustration number 1. And then frustration number 2, or I guess the tangent off of that, was seeing them go empty in that situation because they knew they weren't going to get it. The defense knew they weren't going to get it. Everyone watching at home knew they weren't going to get it. And now you're giving yourself much less of a chance of getting it because you have to go empty and you don't even have the threat of a run. To at least maybe make the defense pause. So if anything happens out of this draft from an offensive standpoint, that, like you said before, Ben, that's all that has to happen. It's just to have somebody who can convert a damn 3rd and 1 and keep a drive alive. And keep
the two factors.
Keep them in a 3rd and 1 situation. Keep them in 2nd and 6 situation. Not 2nd and 15 because they dropped Aaron Rodgers back to pass and he got sacked right away.
Yeah, 3rd and 1. And bringing the safety up, making them creep that and just get out of that 2 deep shell. Man, if they can get out of that 2 deep shell, play action becomes phenomenal, I think, in this offense. And you've still got so many weapons with your receivers that they can be that potent, super potent threat we saw a couple of years ago. Other issues in the draft, Reed, I was surprised myself, and I think it's very telling, the Packers did not address really the safety position. I thought they figured they needed a shot at maybe bringing 1 or 2 guys in, see if they could be anything close to a Nick Collins type player. From the physical standpoint as well, they're confident in Morgan Burnett, MD Jennings, R.W. McQuarters, whoever these guys are in the back, playing safety, and they didn't do it. So they're confident back there apparently.
Well, everyone's saying they didn't do it. When I think last year, 2 of the biggest plays of the season, one is that MD Jennings picking off the pass against Seattle. The pass that became a touchdown. I mean, that was a huge play. And then I think it was Jennings again, if it wasn't McMillan, making the play against Detroit that turned around that game with the touchdown. So everyone's complaining about the safeties, but they felt really good about Jerron McMillan last year coming out of Maine. They have MD Jennings. I think they're going to be fine. I really think they are. And the other thing, let's just keep this now. This is crazy talk right here, okay? But nobody's looking at Charles Woodson. Nobody. I don't think he's been asked to leave his house since the Packers cut him. All right? So if you can bring back Charles Woodson, let's say in June or July for $2 or $3 million a year, why not? I mean, maybe that's what they're thinking now, especially as the wait keeps getting longer and longer. Plus, you're going to see, there's going to be some safeties that are discarded here with the drafts. It's fine. They were never at a spot where that was the best pick to go with. I mean, you're going to take a safety, one of these tweener safeties. Matt Elam was 5'9" over Dayton Jones at the 26th pick, or not get Eddie Lacy. They tried not to get Eddie Lacy. They kept trading down. Like, we don't want Eddie Lacy. He's got a fused toe. And then he's like, well, fine, I guess I'll go ahead and take a running back. I mean, that's how it worked.
Yeah, well, and it's I would have rather them take Eddie Lacy than Monte Ball. I got to admit, even though I enjoyed watching Monte Ball play, I think if you're going to take a guy who we're talking about 3rd and 1 and all that stuff, it's the big physical guy. We got to be done with talking about the running game. We're going to talk about it a lot here in the next several months. But I was fine at that point. But I think you're right. I mean, they clearly had chances to take safety at several points through the middle rounds, and they didn't do it. So either their board didn't say they should, or they didn't. It wasn't as big a need as we thought it was. And you're right. They had secondary guys last year make a lot of plays, whether it be at corner or safety. They did take one kid from Iowa, but he's from Iowa. So, and he's a tweener too. So we don't know what's going to happen. Apparently he's really smart,
but he's
which is great.
He's 6 foot. I mean, if you had to ask me what one guy in the secondary last year didn't play up to standards, I'd say it was Tramon Williams. I think most people who watched it would agree with me. Now, whether that's because he was still suffering from the shoulder injury, which is what he claimed, or maybe teams have figured out how to attack Tramon Williams. He's a little dude, and if Micah Hyde can come in at 6 foot, 200 pounds, and play a more physical brand of corner, then I don't have any problem with the pick. I don't think you could watch this team last year and be like, no, that back end's good. And the safeties are a problem, but the cornerbacks are great. No, there were issues all over the field last year. So bring in some big guys, bring in some dudes that are willing to hit, and let's go play football.
Yeah, well, and here's, I'll put the question to you. after this whole thing, so you take a look at both the draft, the development of players from year 1 to year 2 in the way they went so heavily defensive last year. Guys like Mike Daniels and some of those other some of the secondary players that look to get even better, and bringing back Desmond Bishop, despite a Twitter trade rumor that probably is totally non-existent, because I don't know why they would ever consider trading him at this point. Maybe a guy like a flyer on Johnny Jolly. You look at Mike Neal if he's healthy. You look at now of course Dayton Jones and seeing what he can do. Have they, in your opinion, done enough to compete with San Francisco, Seattle, and whoever else, maybe Atlanta or the football giants or whatever in the NFC this year? Have they done enough? Can they be in that group this year?
No. They're so young. They're so young, and they were so bad last year. They were good, kind of, but they were against those teams. They were so bad. So have they done enough? I don't know. They brought in more draft picks. That's what they do. And I love Ted Thompson. I love the way he looks at building this team. And I think he has to be much more economic now moving forward than ever before, because he's tied up all this money in Aaron Rodgers and Clay Matthews. But the Niners had just as many picks. The Niners also signed free agents. I mean, the Niners kind of are out-packering the Packers right now in terms of how to build a franchise. And they have a quarterback who's a lot younger and a lot cheaper, which means you can spend a lot more money around him. So maybe Atlanta and New York, sure, but San Francisco is, in my opinion, head and shoulders above the Packers right now. And just because you draft a few kids out of college you think are tough doesn't make your whole organization tough. We're going to have to see some real difference on the field this year.
Yeah, we are. And it starts obviously in game 1. Okay, to wrap it up, I wrote on.
What do you think, Ben? Do you think the Packers are there?
Thompson. No, I agree with you, and I agree that because it's youth. What's frustrating about the draft is that you don't just bring in free agents, and I get it. I mean, they're in a lot better shape to lock up some players like Aaron Rodgers and Clay Matthews. Like anything else, it's so true these days. You get to the playoffs, and then you see what happens. Maybe let these guys develop. I think they can play a little bit better with them. I know we'll find out. We'll have a huge litmus test week 1. But no, my answer would be no. If you say, have they done it? No, but maybe these same guys 2 years from now, the answer will be yes. But you're right. They're the youngest team in the NFL again, probably. I almost
kind of feel like this is Aaron Rodgers. What those like the 2000 and one season's worth of Brett Favre, mostly the 2000 season, where you had a pretty large turnover on the roster. The Packers decided they need to get younger in a lot of areas, so you got rid of Bill Schrader and you got rid of Antonio Freeman and you brought in Donald Driver and Javon Walker and some of these younger guys. I kind of get that sense with this team, and not that Jordy Nelson is a Bill Schrader or James Jones, but like there's just sort of this transition here where you've seen some of the older guys go, the Woodsons and the Jennings and the Drivers, who were such a big part of that last Super Bowl. And there's going to be some sort of a transition, and it's going to be a year where things aren't as good as they have been. But it's a matter of how the Packers come out on the other side. And this year feels like that year to me right now.
Okay, yeah, and we'll see. I mean, I carry out hope because I feel like, they've also got in other areas now a bunch of unrestricted free agents or free agents coming up at the end of the year. I think the number's like 10 at the end of this year, so that makes me nervous. But, you can't rush this stuff. I mean, you can't expect these guys or even a significant number of them to come in and start playing like they're in their prime because they're not. They're just rookies. So that's the downside with the draft is you gotta build it strong, but it takes a little while. And we'll see. And the 49ers just appear to be the odds-on favorite. They're the team that's going to be coming into the season with all the momentum and peaking, and they look to be the best team in the NFL. So I did this. I wrote this as I don't know. I was bored, and I started thinking about Ted Thompson.
Way to sell it, Ben.
I know. Well,
people are tuning off as we speak.
I posted it on our Facebook page, and I thought a lot more people would look at it. So this is my plea to look at it. Go to Facebook, and I'm going to just read it to you, and if you think it's funny, go look at it and like it for the love of God. All right, Ted Thompson. I consider to be the Chuck Norris of the NFL draft. You like where I'm going with this so far?
All you told me was the Chuck Norris of the NFL draft. That's it.
Maybe not. All right.
I need more, Ben.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's
it's only funny to you right now because you're the only one that knows it.
I've built it up. I've built it up too much.
Okay.
All right, here we go. All right, here a couple of sayings. You know how they do the Chuck Norris stuff. All right, Thompson doesn't trade down. He makes other GMs surrender their draft picks to his genius.
All right.
Ted Thompson doesn't pick the best available player. He picks the best available Pro Bowler. Okay.
Did you write
Ted Thompson doesn't study a draft board. Yeah, of course I did. Come on.
Never.
Ted Thompson doesn't study a draft board. He stares it down until it gives him Hall of Famers. Anyone? Is this thing
Ben.
okay.
Ben,
well, we all think that Ted Thompson. What?
Here's the deal. This is how we work. Leave the comedy to me. All right. It's okay.
I know, but I keep aspiring because I'd love to be funny. I just really want to be funny. It doesn't work though.
No.
Nobody laughs.
No.
I don't get it.
No.
All right, let me throw my best one at you. I got three more, but I'm going to do one of them.
Oh, thank God.
All right, hang on. Let me. Okay. Well, we all think that Ted Thompson is kind of boring and doesn't have much personality. The NFL draft sees him as its soulmate and will love him forever. No.
First of all, I don't think anybody looks at Ted Thompson that way. So that's your first mistake.
You mean boring or as a soulmate?
No, the first part.
I think boring.
Boring and awkward? That's not Ted. Ted Thompson's engaging and dashing.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Who's the comedy being left to here? All right. Well,
let me wrap this up, Ben.
I tried.
You made it weird.
I made it awkward, huh? All right.
Yep.
All right. That's the draft. Rob Reichel is going to join us next. I will not throw these Ted Thompson
I think you should.
You think so?
Get his take on it. Okay.
I don't think so. It's on Facebook. Go like it just to appease me, just for sympathy's sake. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/TheTalkingCheeseheads. I'm sorry, just Talking Cheeseheads. Or at Twitter, our handle is Cheesehead Talks. And, come to more wisdom like this. Rob Reichel's next, and then back with Reed for the cheese curds at the end of the podcast. I'm Ben Larson, CheeseheadTalk.com.
Cheddar with attitude. The Talking Cheeseheads on CheeseheadTalk.com.